Good morning, you guys, it's Karen and we're continuing on with 2020 favourites, and today we're talking brows and eye primers. So I have got quite a few brow products to tell you about, and like everything else, and as I've said, I love variation. It's one of the things that Kev finds quite amusing about me, because it's not like say even with alcohol, sometimes I'll just not drink alcohol at all and I'll be into like this drink called Rubicon, which is like it's got sweetener in it, but it's a fruit drink. And other times I'll really like my Bacardi and Diet Coke. Other times I'll be into Baileys. Other times I'll be into strawberry wine. That's what I'm into at the moment. And I'm just in everything. I like to have variation, and that includes brows. So I like using a brow pencil. I like using brow powder. I like using brow pomade. You know, there's lots of different things that I use for my brows. But these things are all fairly consistent. There's one, I think, new product here. I don't know why I've put that in there. I've put the NYX Jumbo pencil in here. I think that was supposed to be in with my eyeliners video. Oh well. So let me talk about the two pencils that I use, because I think that these are probably the things I use the most, and that's just because they're so quick and easy. You know, the other things like the powder and the pomade I use probably when I've got more time. The first thing is the brow blade. I discovered this a couple of years back, but I couldn't get the right, wasn't getting the right color. I think I was always buying a color too dark. This one is in Taupe Trap, and it's a pretty good color for me. I think that's the color I've got on today, Taupe Trap. And so this brow blade by Urban Decay is a double-ended pen. So you've got the pencil on one end. Do a swatch for you. And that is almost a micro pencil. I don't think is it? Let's have a look. I was going to say, I don't think it's quite as skinny as a micro pencil, but I'm about to show you one, so let's have a look. Almost. Yeah, I think it's very nearly a micro pencil. And on the other side is a felt tip pen. And I've tried quite a few of these felt tips. Now, the felt tip is normally darker. Actually, it looks pretty similar on there. But I've tried quite a few of these felt tips, and this is one that to me works the best. The others that I've tried, I can't think which ones now. I know I've tried a number 7 one. I've tried one that's got like 3 little pens in it. I've tried all sorts, and they just, either I get the wrong colour, or when I go to use them on my brows, they're not pigmented enough, or they're not thin enough. This one, it's a brush pen. It's not a, you know, felt tip type tip. It's an actual brush. And it's remained pigmented. I've had this at least 6 months, and it's remained pigmented, and I've been using this a lot. And so I start off, I just use this sort of here, and I'm able to do some brush strokes, and then I use the pencil here. I'm not sure why. I think because if I use the pen here, I'm just not quite good enough at doing brows, and it looks too sort of harsh. But being able to do brow strokes with something is brilliant to me, and so I really, really like this. Yeah, really enjoyed using that. And then I also still love the NYX Microbrow pencil. This one is, I think, also in taupe. Oh no, this one's in chocolate, but I've been using taupe. Yeah, you can see that's the chocolate one, and it's a bit darker, isn't it? I've also been using the taupe one, and I love it. I love the fact that it's got a little spoolie on the end. You know, this is really, really quick to use, but it gives my eyebrows more of a sort of block look, rather than being able to do a few brush strokes with that pen. But I will always love that NYX brow pencil. I've loved it since I used it, so I've been using that quite a few years. Then onto powders. I've only got the one powder to talk about, but I've got 3 of them. And it's the Anastasia brow powder, and I really think it's worth the money, because I think they're £24, but this is the kind of product that will last you a long time. You know, it's something that I think it's worth investing in. I do intend on doing a video on what I think's worth spending money on, and what I think you can buy drugstore, because my makeup is a very eclectic mix of both of those. You know, some things are £2, some are £32. But with brow powder, it lasts so long. And I have tried using many, many different eyeshadows and other brow powders, and this Anastasia Beverly Hills one has always been the best. So I've got it in Caramel. You may remember Caramel is the first colour that I used, and it is still a fairly good colour for me. But as you can probably see, as I get older, my hair is less red, and it's less red naturally, but also I'm not dyeing it as much. Well, I haven't dyed it for a couple of years now, have I? And so I used to dye my hair red a lot, and so the caramel one was really good because it had that reddy warmth in it. But then I have tried these two. Taupe is really good for me. I think that's the number one. Taupe seems to be my colour in everything at the moment, brows. And then this one is blonde. So the blonde, I would say, is the same colour as the lighter colour in the taupe one. And it's okay, but it's very light, you know. I need to use that a little bit more to see if it's worth keeping. But I do still love those. But what I love about powders is I feel like they look softer, even though you can't get, like, you know, you can't get brow strokes in, so they're not going to look as natural. They just look, they look a little bit more natural in the fact that they look softer, if that makes sense. I remember my dad actually used to comment that he didn't like, he thought my brows were too dark and too sharp looking. You know, it's funny, my dad, you know, he's was a big guy with tattoos and all the rest of it, with, you know, a criminal background, but he was very into what his, like, he would give opinions on what Eve wore. He would talk about what lipstick he liked and what clothes he liked and how he liked her hair and, you know, things like that. And he was like that with me as well. You know, I could say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? You know, he would tell me. And so he used to say he thought my eyebrows were too harsh looking and too dark. But sometimes he'd say, oh, I like your eyebrows today. And it was if I had powder in, because they, like I said, they would look softer. But this is just great. I find that this stays better than eyeshadow, and it sort of grips better than eyeshadow somehow. It goes on better, you know. Oh, I've just realised I should have been showing you guys brushes. I'll have to do a whole brushes video, won't I? So I've got some good brushes, but goodness knows if they're all available or not. So then, as I was saying, I also found a pomade that I like, and this is by e.l.f. Now, I'm trying to figure out what colour this is. I bet you it's taupe. No, actually, I think it's blonde. It's not blonde. It's nothing like blonde. It's light brown. I remember, I think this is the only, I think they've got two colours maybe, and I don't think there's a lighter one than this. But that is light brown. You can see I've used it a few times. I really like this. If I just fancy using something different on my brows, I'll use this. And it does make them look a little bit bolder. But it stays on, you know, doesn't budge. It's really good. I really like that e.l.f. pomade. And then to keep my brows in place, I love this. And I hope that this is not going out of stock, because when I looked this up today to make sure that you can still get it, I noticed that if you put in Iconic, this is the Iconic Brow Silk. This is the Brow Silk Max because it's in a tube. There is Iconic Brow Silk in a sort of cake, you know, in a compact that comes with a brush. I don't like those because they don't tend to have the brush inside them. Some of them do, but this one looked like the brush is separate. And I haven't tried that one, but this one is the Iconic Silk Max, and I like the fact that it's in a little tube with a brush. So I could find it in a couple of places, so I should be able to link it for you. I think one of them came in a set, so I might have to give that sort of pomade a go, because this is honestly hands down the only thing to hold my brows in place that I've found that I've continued to love, you know, and haven't looked at it and gone, oh no, actually it's making them look a bit clumpy, or they feel too crispy, or something I was using and I was like, oh my goodness, it feels like, you know, I don't think that's good for my brows to be that crispy. This is just perfect. It keeps them in place. They don't budge. You don't have those little hairs falling down. So I hope I can still get that for you, but I might try that. So it's probably soap brows, isn't it? So that's everything for brows. And then I've got two primers to tell you about. And I'm so glad that I had forced myself to use one of my primers all year, because I've got three, and one of the ones that I love, and is again, I just sort of forced myself not to use because I wanted to try my other ones, is the Smashbox one. But as far as I can see, that doesn't exist anymore, the Smashbox 24-hour eye primer. I mean, you can probably buy it on eBay or something. So I've been using this Hourglass Veil eye primer, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it as much as my Smashbox one now. Thank goodness, because it looks like I might not be able to get the Smashbox one. Now, this one has actually got a colour to it, whereby the Smashbox one didn't. So you can see there, it's got a bit of a tint. But this is, it's actually perfect because it's not too concealer-like, because I did try the Louise one, P. Louise, that everybody seemed to love but me, and I actually found that too pigmented. I just couldn't get a small enough amount for it to be sheer, and I felt like it also dried down pretty quickly. But this one, it does dry down, but it takes a minute. And so I can put this on, I can sort of sheer it out if I want to, if I'm not worried about covering anything on my eyes, you know, but it does give a little bit of cover. Or you can thicken it up if you want a little bit more cover. And I can put on an eyeshadow and it really makes it stand out. And if I'm using anything, not today when I'm doing a matte look, but if I'm using any kind of satin, shimmery, metallic, that type of eyeshadow, using a primer like this, I think gives it that extra sort of pop, you know, and it just makes it so much easier to apply. And like I said, it doesn't dry down immediately, so it seems to grip the eyeshadow and it just sort of makes it a bit more pow. So I really like this Hourglass one. And this is another of those that I think it's worth spending money on, because again, this is probably £24 or something like that. But I've had that for, I reckon, at least a year. And I've still got that Smashbox one. And I remember I bought a backup for the Smashbox one because I was at the end of the tube, kind of like I am here. And then it still lasted another 6 months. And this will probably last me another 6 months. It'll be a while before I need any eye primers. But I do really recommend that. But if that one is too expensive for your taste, this one is pretty similar, and it's also got the same amount of coverage. And this is the 17 one, 17 eye primer. I've talked about quite a few 17 products, haven't I? I am quite partial to a 17 product. So you can see it's got some coverage to it. Now, I haven't used this as much. That's the only thing I'd say. I used it a fair few times when I got it. You know, I probably used it for a week and was like, oh yeah, this is pretty good, but not enough to test it out. Like it dries down fairly quickly. I think it dries down a bit quicker than this, but I need to use a lot of different eyeshadows with it and see if it gives the same kind of power effect. But I do like it. I definitely like it, and it would be a great dupe for this one. Okay, that's everything for brows and eye primer. So I think it's the exciting things left to talk about, in that is eyeshadows and lipsticks. Lipstick and lip liners I'll do, and then just eyeshadows I'm sure will just be in its own video, because I have so many to talk about, you know. And actually it's been a year of me doing more matte looks, but I did find some, I think, really good shadows. And then it's been an eye-opener as to which of my old sort of metallic-y type shadows I've still thought look okay, even though I feel like my eyes have deteriorated with age, and I don't suit the bold metallic eye colours that I used to love as much. It's been interesting to see which ones I still like. So those videos are next. I will leave details of my makeup in the description. I hope you're all well, and I'll speak to you soon.